Welcome, Drink with James, episode 117. We're back in the conference room, back alone. If you have not seen my episode last week with Valerie from On a Curve, please go and watch it. It's 45 minutes of her just dropping knowledge. We definitely veer a little bit away from what we generally talk about in the space as far as actionable tips and things like that, but talk about some big issues that I think the industry needs to come to terms with, and everyone working within that industry need to do better to understand and to react to, and to try and hopefully create some positive change. So if you haven't watched it, please watch it. Again, Val, thank you so much for coming out and sharing with us. That was amazing. If you're not watching this, then it's really awkward because I'm thanking you and you're not watching it. So I look like an idiot. So hopefully you are. I have an itch. Okay, before I get into things, I saw something the other day from an influencer that I thought was really smart. It was a photographer who was doing a campaign for a new camera and published 3 or 4 static posts of images he created with the camera. And then the next day did a Q&A, like an Instagram Q&A, where he said, ask me questions about this camera specifically, and then answered 10 or 15 of those questions in a row. I thought it was such a nice way on a sponsored post to kind of flesh out some of the more nitty-gritty details of a specific product without having to have a caption that has all that information. So I sent an email to all of our brands this week as you know, that they should maybe investigate that or think about that as a strategy. But if you're working with a brand on a sponsored post, if it is a product that lends itself to a lot of questions, if it's something totally new that's supposed to work in a new way, and you think your audience would have questions about it, it's a nice way to get a conversation about the product happening without having to have that conversation in the caption or comments. So something to consider. I, as a consumer, saw it and was really interested. I think it also gave him a chance to be really honest. It's something we'll kind of talk about in question 1 this week. But there were a few instances where, you know, he said, oh yeah, there were a couple things I didn't like about it. I didn't like this and this, but I loved this. And it made me feel like it was a real honest review. I felt like I understood the camera a lot better, its pros, its cons, what it can do, what it's capable of. And it was a Nikon, so I would never buy it because I would never touch a Nikon. I still thought it was interesting. So, something to consider for you. That one's free. Take it as you will. We're gonna roll into questions. Question number 1 is, what are some ways that I can build trust with my audience? This is something that I've been thinking about a good amount. Let's go back to what I just said in the intro. Something that's interesting with influencers is that, you know, oftentimes you get compared to journalists. The difference is I almost never see influencers say something negative about any brand because they don't want to jeopardize their ability to potentially work with that brand. And I am not saying you should be putting brands on blast, but if you only blow sunshine and flowers up the ass of every brand in the world, how am I ever going to believe anything that you say? You know, I think that there is room to have a honest conversation about some brands, to say, this was awesome, I didn't love this, or it worked really well for this, it wouldn't work as well for this specific thing. So I'm not saying you should be doing that on a sponsored post because that's an advertisement someone buys. That is not, organic earned media. That is paid media. So whatever they want you to say is essentially what you're going to say. But in your organic posts, in your day-to-day, as you talk about brands, try and be honest with your audience. Try and tell them, your actual honest opinion. Could it jeopardize your ability to work with that brand in the future? Yes and no. In the short term, it might. It would depend on your tone. If you're like, this is the worst product I've ever seen in my life and nobody should ever buy it, then in what world would you want to work with that brand anyway? Now, I wouldn't suggest that's the way to frame the conversation about a brand. But saying, hey, I bought this moisturizer, my skin felt better. I didn't feel like it was, it was $50 and it didn't feel twice as good as my $20 moisturizer, so I'm not sure that I would suggest it, but it did feel, it was nice, and I did like this about it. That to me feels honest without saying this product is a waste of money. The other thing is just like, even if it's an overwhelmingly positive review and you love the product, you can't love everything about it. Like, I love this suit, but it is terribly uncomfortable and it is so hot. And it is gratuitously expensive, and you cannot justify its cost in any way, shape, or form. And you look like a child, like you look like you're wearing a child's suit. So there are cons with wearing a Thom Browne suit. It is not perfect. It is definitely not for everyone. And I think that, like, as you think about that with the brands that you're talking about, even if you love something, the ability to say, yeah, but this is kind of annoying, or like, this was a little frustrating, or this is something to think about, I think that can build trust with your audience, because they're saying, oh, okay, like, you said something a little bit negative, or it seems like you talked about this product as a normal human does, which is not, oh my God, I love it so much. Guys, I have to tell you, I found this new moisturizer. I love it. I am obsessed. I love it. It's my favorite. It's like, cool, you said that last week about another moisturizer, and you could say that next week about another one. So, like, how do you build trust? You can still do that and say I'm obsessed, but, what are some things you don't love? There's this really kind of, I'm a car guy, I love cars. There's this guy who's a YouTuber, Chris Harris, who reviews cars, and he said some shit about Ferrari years ago and called them out in a big way, and they blocked him not only from reviewing their cars, but from purchasing them. He wanted to buy a Ferrari, and they literally would not sell him one. So he had to buy it used because Ferrari refused to sell him a car. Now, he has eventually repaired his relationship, part of that being that he's gotten so popular and he is so respected that Ferrari could no longer avoid him or ignore him. Also, it's just like old news. I think they just kind of got over it. What I'm saying is that even if you kind of hurt a brand's feelings a little bit in the short term, it's not to say that, in the future you can't work with them. It's also not to say that, like, your goal in doing this is not to make every single brand in the world love you. It is to build an audience that trusts you and respects you, and have that trust and respect be so important that brands are clamoring to work with you. That's the goal. So if in the process of doing that, you piss a few brands off, I mean, do you really care? I don't. Again, I think that there's a respectful way to do it, but you have to be honest. And I know all of you could sit here and watch this and be like, I am honest. And it's like, right, you're not, because I literally never hear anything, not even negative, but like, I never hear like this is good, but. So try and, I'd encourage you to try and integrate some of that, try and be a little bit more honest, see where it takes you. That was a long tangent, and let me just rattle off a few other points. So the influencers I trust are generally because they are like thought leaders, or they have an incredible amount of knowledge. Going back to this guy, Chris Harris, who I love, who's just a charming, interesting dude. He's also an incredible driver. He races, he wins races. He's just like an amateur. He's never been pro, but like, put him in a car, the guy can drive. He can do things in a car that I could never do. He understands cars in a way that I would never understand them. So he has my trust there because he is an expert in that very specific field, generally sports cars. So I think influencers that have that level of passion, I look at like Mariana in the beauty space, like she really does seem, as someone who's like more of a lifestyle influencer than the hardcore beauty people, she does seem to have, obviously quite a passion for skincare. It's something she's always talked about, and she's talked about intelligently, and she does a good job of reviewing products. I'm obviously not buying the same things as Mariana. I rented a Leica when I was in Italy. I've been following, a big part of it is I've been following Joe Greer, who's Maddie's husband, is Maddie Greer's husband. Also a photographer. He's great. He shoots a lot of film Leica. I love his work. I wanted to try and emulate it. Again, he is someone that I would trust to talk about shooting film Leicas because he does it really well. It's something he consistently talks about. So obviously understanding your vertical and understanding the niche you're speaking to is a good way to build trust. It's kind of a two-part question. Question number 2 is, my sales conversion on social isn't as high as on the blog. Can I change this? And are we going to be seeing a lot more affiliate collaborations on Instagram? Talked about this a little bit before. I'll touch on it briefly. I don't think most people, when they look at Instagram, because it is a diversion, it is something that you look at for a minute or two at a time. I don't think most people come to Instagram with the purpose of shopping, which is different than blogs, where you would go to a URL, and I think that you are more willing, ready, and able to shop when you're on a desktop usually. So you're there, you're logged into all the shops, you're logged into Net-a-Porter, you're logged into Amazon, you're logged into Nordstrom's, whatever it is. It makes it very easy. The links are all there. There's not only the links to the products they have, but to different, to 5 other options that are cheaper. Blogs are kind of set up to get you to shop. There's also, you can search a blog, all these things that make it just quite a bit more actionable. Instagram is obviously chasing shopping. They're launching or have launched a standalone shopping app. A lot of times Instagram launches standalone apps and then learns a thing or two about it in that standalone and then integrates that back into the app. So, we could see a world certainly where influencers can link directly to the posts in their Instagram, and you can shop through there. I think that would make sense. I think that would be awesome for everyone. It won't be awesome for affiliate networks because I think they will scrub that affiliate out. So that is something to consider. But Instagram definitely wants to tackle shopping. They want to understand it. They want to have more people buying stuff on Instagram, because Instagram is set up to do what? Sell advertising. So if it is a lot easier to shop on their app, they're going to have the ability to sell a lot more ads. So they will do anything in their power to sell more ads. That is the entire purpose of the company. I wouldn't delude myself that they're trying to do anything else other than sell advertising at this point. So they will figure it out. So the second question is with affiliates, I think we will see less and less affiliates on Instagram, because I think Instagram will offer a native solution to be able to sell things. I'm not sure that they'll be paying influencers out for that. But on the influencer space, if it's easier to buy things, and if brands are seeing a huge amount of sales come through Instagram, that is great for all of you. That's great for all of us. It would be amazing to be able to have much more direct ROI to sales on Instagram. It would be much easier to justify your prices, to justify working with you, and to justify moving advertising away from more traditional mediums into Instagram. So, God willing, they launch something that works, and we all get to make a lot more money. I don't know if I got that ad, but no, I didn't. Okay, question number 3. I'm an influencer in the sustainable fashion niche. I want to expand into travel. Should I focus on highlighting my hometown of Portland as a destination, or should I start traveling heavily and documenting it? Well, first of all, if you're asking yourself that question, and that's just a choice you can make to just start traveling heavily, more power to you. I would just do that because that sounds really fun. So if you can do that, fuck it, do it. Go live the dream, send us photos. something to think about with travel. I think there are different types of travel influencers, right? Like you can have a travel influencer who is going to places that maybe you will never go to, very exotic, very hard to reach, unknown places that, you know, maybe it's like a once in a lifetime type trip for you, but isn't something that is like, you know, here's my guide to Paris. It's like, here's my guide to like this obscure Uzbekistani city that you've never heard of. And then there is travel influencers who are like, here's cute cafes in Paris, here's cute cafes in Copenhagen, here's my favorite vintage shopping in London, here's my favorite cocktail bar in New York City. So I think first it's understanding what kind of, when you talk about travel, what kind of travel influencer you're going to be. Most people don't have the time, money, or stomach to do the kind of adventure-based, difficult travel. Most people want to stay in the Four Seasons, myself included, and be pampered and, you know, go to chic places and drink Manhattans and always be able to order a turkey club at midnight with room service should you need to. That's just me. Also, that is my travel meal. I don't know why. I never eat turkey clubs ever in my life. I would never just order a club. Every time at room service, my order is a turkey club. What is your room service order? Let me know. That's a side note. Now, moving on. The other kind of influencer, if you're going to be like a guy named Patrick, right? Like I look at where a guy named Patrick goes. I look at where Olivia Lopez from Lust for Life goes when they're in cities because I think that they have great taste. And I know that they're well-traveled and they go to cute cafes, bars, and restaurants, and they shop at interesting places. So if you're going to be an influencer like that, I think a great way to start is by looking at your own city and saying, what can I, start documenting, seeing if your audience is reacting well to it. Start with the place that you live. Now, if you want to be the other kind of influencer, you know, I think there's a way to test that as well. You live in Portland, you're surrounded by, you know, immense amounts of natural beauty and wilderness and weird towns and all sorts of things. You can go further afield on the weekends. You can travel locally and start to tell those stories. Maybe do both. See what your audience is reacting to. I wouldn't, you know, I joked earlier, but I wouldn't dump $50,000 into traveling around the world creating content to try and up your engagement and become a travel influencer, because I don't think it's going to pay. Part two, travel doesn't pay. Travel companies have almost no budget across the board. It's changing a little bit. Hotel groups are very difficult to work with. They generally want to just comp the rooms. You know, most hotel groups are a central company, and then the hotel properties are almost like franchises. So the corporate doesn't have a lot of power over what happens in each place. So you could have a great relationship with the Ritz-Carlton in Atlanta. That doesn't mean that you're going to be able to stay at the Ritz in Paris. Totally different teams that don't really communicate at all. They really operate as completely separate businesses. So travel has its complexities with making a living off of it. It is an amazing thing to do for a lot of influencers. It's one of the biggest perks. I don't know a lot of influencers making a living off of travel exclusively. So that is something to consider. And the other thing with being a travel influencer, if either way is you're going to have to be a great photographer, I think. You're going to have to be able to go to a city and capture it without you in it necessarily in a really unique and interesting way. So again, another reason to start at home. Try and cover Portland in a way that makes it seem really exciting and amazing. I love Portland. I think it's fun. So maybe start there. That's it for us. We've got an event tonight. We have an event called Five and Wine. If you're watching this, you're a New York-based influencer, send Angela an email, angela@4.co. We try and get our micro-influencers from New York together,
Once a quarter.
4 times a year or so. And we give each influencer 5 minutes and they pitch the team on why we should work with them. Great way for influencers to get FaceTime with the team. Last time we had 20 influencers come. We paid 18 of them on paid campaigns over the next few months after that event. So it's a great way to get in front of our team and eventually, hopefully, a great way to get paid. So if you're in New York and you're watching this and you want to be considered for the next one, send Angela at 4.co an email. Let her know. She'll keep you in mind for the next one. That is all. Goodbye.